Governor, thank you so much for your time today. We are really living in some wild times. For folks who just aren't aware, more than a couple dozen Texas lawmakers have fled to your state seeking safe haven in an effort to prevent their state legislature from redrawing their state map mid-cycle to essentially give 5 Democrat seats to Republicans. It is wild that this is where America is right now. You have offered your state as safe harbor for them. You didn't have to do it. Why did you decide that this is your fight too?
Because this is a fight for democracy across America. That's why. We have about 35 of the Texas House Democrats, an increasing number. They're arriving still. And we're proud to stand up for them. And we're, the land of Lincoln here. We're the home state of Barack Obama. We stand up for American democracy and believe in our constitutional republic and know that what they're doing in Texas, the Republicans, at the behest of Donald Trump, and frankly, they're just following like, cult followers, their cult leader. They are attempting to thwart democracy by taking away not just 5 districts from Democrats, they're taking 5 districts away from Black and brown people and their representatives. And they're doing it all simply because Donald Trump realizes that he's going to lose the Congress in 2026 based upon the policies that they've now put in place with the big ugly bill that they passed. So he's trying to change the game in the middle of the decade, right? He's trying to cheat, and we know he's a cheater. And he's doing it not just in Texas, but he's going to attempt to do it in other states too. So we've got to stop him in Texas if we can. And I'm proud in Illinois to host these folks. They are sacrificing so much for all of us. And so we want to make it as easy as we can for them to do it, as hard as it is for them to be away from their families, away from their jobs, not earning any money while they're doing it, and hoping that they can go back home simply to vote, by the way, in this special session that was called for the flood victims
Right.
in an emergency.
I want to underscore for folks, you're not just offering them conference rooms and a place to stay in your state. You're literally saying they have safe harbor here. I've heard you say that you are going to protect them. That actually matters. Overnight, I understand there was a bomb threat at a hotel they were staying at. It turned out to be fine. Are you concerned that these people are actually in physical danger?
I am. And it's because, last night, before the bomb threat came in, there was a right-wing blogger who apparently has been uh, given credentials at the White House and is a regular White House reporter as a result. But this is a very right-wing blogger who showed up at the location that many of these legislators are at with video and showing off where it is, put up on social media a map, and basically said, these are fugitives to anybody who is listening. So, there are a lot of crazy people out there who think they know what's right and wrong. And these folks have not broken the law. They have not. In Texas, the Texas House of Representatives has a speaker, Republican, who issued what's called a civil warrant. That is not appropriate for law enforcement to carry out. It's a civil warrant. It's civil, right? Not criminal. And these folks, of course, are out of state, so it can't be enforced upon them by Texas Rangers or anybody in Texas. And so, yeah, we're going to make sure that they're safe. But it is true that their safety is in danger because there are some people who may want to cause them harm. And so we've got state police with them now. They've got their own private security as well. We've got local law enforcement involved, and we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe. In fact, I know that we are going to keep them safe because we're doing all that can be done. And I will say that Donald Trump is pouring gasoline on the fire with everything that he says about this topic, though, and I'm quite concerned as a result of him weighing in.
Mm. Let me ask you about that because quite clearly, Texas officials have no authority to make arrests in your state. But Senator Cornyn of Texas has called for the FBI to arrest them. And President Trump also said the FBI might have to do that. So What do you feel is your responsibility as the governor to protect these lawmakers if federal agents show up?
Well, they're grandstanding. There literally is no federal law applicable to this situation. None. They can say that they're sending FBI agents might show up just to, I don't know, again, to put a show on. But
Right,
the fact is that, our local law enforcement protect everybody in Illinois. Our state troopers protect everybody in Illinois and anybody who's here in Illinois. And so whether it's federal agents, coming to Illinois or state rangers from Texas, if you haven't broken federal law, you're basically unwelcome, and there's no way that they can be that our state legislators here, the Texas state legislators, can be arrested.
okay. I hope that's not tested. If it is, are we headed to a standoff between state and federal authority over who controls our elections? Is that where we are?
Look, we follow the law, and the law is what I just laid it out to be. But as you know, Donald Trump does not follow the law. Indeed, he's a convicted felon. And in Texas, they are also not following the law. They are thwarting the Constitution with the Voting Rights Act and making threats that they can't carry out. John Cornyn, of course, is running against Ken Paxton for his seat in the U.S. Senate. And so they're fighting, bickering over who can be tougher on this topic. But the fact is that I think they're demonstrating as a result of that bickering, and Abbott has weighed in as well, that this is really all about politics. This has nothing to do. I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing, what's happening right now,
No.
where people are calling in the FBI about some people are out of state? It just never happens. And yet here we are. And it's because Donald Trump is president and because Greg Abbott is his avid follower.
Right. Who can be most MAGA? Uh, California and New York are right now openly considering redrawing their maps. I know in Illinois, the map is already heavily Democratic. It's 14, I think, of 17 seats are Democrats. You have said that everything's on the table, but what would it take to trigger a decision by you to redraw your map? What would like put you over?
Well, I want to be clear that there certainly are states where it would be easier, let's say, to have a redistricting, but no one, whether it's the governor of California, the legislature there, New York's governor or legislature, Illinois, we don't want to do this. This is not something that we asked for. But when Donald Trump and Greg Abbott are thwarting the Constitution, when they're attacking people's, well, now it's their personal safety, really, when they're putting them in danger, when they're demonstrating that they have no regard for democratic institutions, everything's got to be on the table. We've got to consider anything. What would it take? I can't tell you right now. What I know is that we have begun to take some of those actions. The very fact that we invited the Texas Democratic delegation to Illinois and that we have assisted them, and I'm talking about with logistics and otherwise, is demonstration that we're prepared to do what it takes to defend our democracy.
Do you think, like a more philosophical question, do you think this redistricting fight is really the kind of chaos Trump wants to undermine voters' confidence in the fairness of our elections? And if Democrats in state after state do go ahead and redraw their maps, what can leaders do to ensure voters or just build voters' confidence that our elections are still worth showing up for, that they are fair and our democracy is working?
Well, laying down is not going to work, right? Just letting him do what he wants to do, and again, thwarting democratic institutions, it doesn't instill any confidence in people. I think standing up for what's right, standing up for the Constitution. Here we are on the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, standing up for federal law. It seems to me should instill confidence in people. They don't like to see bickering. They don't like to see fights. And especially when it comes to democratic institutions, the debates about those institutions. But the fact is that we Democrats are following the law. We're attempting to do everything that we can to keep our constitutional republic intact. I helped to build a Holocaust museum. And one of the things that, when you know the history of the Holocaust that happened, in Nazi Germany or in Germany is that in 1933, when the Nazis took over, uh, they, in 53 days, they took down the constitutional republic that was the Weimar Republic. That can happen in the United States. It can. I'm not suggesting that the end result of the Holocaust is where this goes,
Right.
but what we're talking about is authoritarianism. I use that example because I know it best. Authoritarians, yes, they want to tear down democratic institutions, and the Democrats, and I mean little d, those of us who believe in these institutions and in America, know that we've got to stand up for what's right. And it means sometimes putting yourself at risk, your political career perhaps at risk, but laying bare for people the kind of attack that the other side is bringing against all of us, all across the country. And I have to say, I have heard from Republicans the same thing I've heard from Democrats, not all Republicans, but some who agree that what Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and the Republicans in Texas are trying to do, it is the moment for everyone to stand up against that. And this is a moment, I think, where you have to ask yourself, who are you and what do you stand for?
Yeah, that time is here. I'd love to talk to you some other time about the other parallels to Weimar. I didn't know that was an area of knowledge for you. It is chilling. I want just in our closing minutes to ask you to shift to policy for a minute. In the wake of Washington passing this so-called Big Beautiful Bill, this is going to put a lot of pressure on governors, including you and your state. I looked at some of the research. It looks like your state stands to lose 330,000 people in your state could lose Medicaid coverage. 9 rural hospitals could close or have to roll back services. The Kaiser Family Foundation says you could lose $48 billion over the course of this bill. Can your state fill that gap? And are you devising a plan for these folks?
There's no way to fill the funding gap, just no way to do it. The question is, can we, put up barriers and protect as many people as possible? And that is what we're trying to do right now. It is very challenging. You talked about the Medicaid. 540,000 people are at risk of
Wow.
losing Medicaid, so even more than you suggested. And more than 100,000 people who would lose SNAP.
Mm-hmm.
We are working very hard to try to prevent that from happening. Remember, these are the most people on Medicaid, people who are on SNAP benefits. These are the most vulnerable people in our society. Those programs have been there for a long time, and they have lifted up the people who are at the bottom. And that's been the right thing to do. That's who we are as a country. So, as a state of Illinois, as the land of Lincoln, as the home state of Barack Obama. We know that we have obligations to the most vulnerable, to the middle class, to the working class. And without those resources that the federal government was providing for nutrition and healthcare, what we have to do is triage and make sure that the most vulnerable, I'm talking about people whose lives could be lost immediately if they lose Medicaid, are protected. And so that's what we're attempting to do now. Is it going to be easy? No. We're going to lose billions and billions of dollars, as you suggested, of support. And the damage already is being visited on our state. They had deadlines that are, a year and a half from now for some of these things to take effect. But some of them happen right away. And why are they doing all of it? They're doing all of it to give massive tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country who don't need it. I mean, especially when you're taking away, this is reverse Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking away the most basic needs of people who are vulnerable in our society and giving those resources to the people who have everything. This is not the moment to be giving massive tax cuts to wealthy Americans, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and others.
I have a quick out of the box follow up on that, which is you have said that Democrats need bold and creative solutions. One emerging tool we all talk about these days is AI. And we always hear that AI can be effective, especially in healthcare. Is there any version of events where AI could help expand access, where hospitals are closing in the most dire situations, sort of an AI for good, or is that just wishful thinking?
Absolutely, there is an AI for good, and I'll just give you one example. AI can help prevent a lot of disease, a lot of impact on people. When it's deployed and available, imagine, for example, that when you're sick, instead of having to wait for a doctor to be available or that you don't have the resources to access a doctor, imagine if you could access what a doctor would tell you if you went to visit them.
Right.
And it was as good as what a doctor would tell you. It would help prevent the worsening of your disease and might help you solve for that disease and cure it. And so I really believe that the AI for good, as you're calling it, is here, and we're really on quite on the verge of it. Now, as I will also say to you, and I think you know this, that AI also can have some unbelievably deleterious effects on our society. I won't talk about, the challenges of AI in terms of thwarting institutions, but let's talk about the unemployment that will occur
Yeah.
as a result of the deployment of AI. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to manage through that and what it is that how we're going to change the way we operate in society. Um, the question is, what do you do when you're starting to talk about 10% unemployment, which is, I haven't seen that since I was, I don't know, a teenager
Yeah.
in this country. So we've got a lot of challenges ahead. But you said something I think is very important for us to remember. In the near term here, there really is an awful lot of good that will come from AI, and I'm excited to work with it for people's benefit.
Well, I'd love to have a longer conversation with you about that someday. I promised your team that I would keep to time. So I have one last question for you, which is I like to ask everyone this because my brand is called News Not Noise. And especially in these very stressful times, it's so important for all of us to see that even leaders do things to rebalance, take a break, and get their center back. So, what do you do when you need to get away from the noise and feel human again?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I'll just remind you that I've been governor since January of 2019, and essentially I have not had a single year that hasn't had a major crisis, and sometimes long-lasting ones. We had a budget crisis when I first came into office because of the Republican who preceded me. It went right into the COVID crisis, went right into the migrant crisis that Greg Abbott caused for my state. And then now we're in the crisis of Donald Trump as president of the United States. So, with all of that, and I think everybody's mental health challenged by all of those things, I wake up pretty early in the morning. My staff hates it because I start texting them immediately with ideas and thoughts and articles and so on. But the first thing I do after I look at the news is I go out to the lakefront in Chicago and I walk the lakefront. And it is, I mean, first of all, we have the most gorgeous lakefront. People who haven't been to Chicago should know that it's like an ocean. You don't see land on the other side of Lake Michigan. And when you walk along the lakefront, there are people out there early in the morning and everybody's so friendly. We have such great people in Illinois,
True.
kind, decent people. So I get refreshed every morning by doing that. And usually I walk alone, and I'm listening to music, but it allows me to clear my head and think a lot about, what are my high level goals, as well as the things I need to think about for the coming day.
That sounds so lovely. They do say you're not supposed to check your phone first thing when you wake up. So the next discipline can be doing that after the walk.
Fair enough. Although I immediately put in my earbuds. So even if I'm looking
Okay,
quickly at the news,
you're
I'm
distracted.
I'm distracted by the music.
Okay. Governor, thank you so much for your time today and for the fight you're waging on behalf of Americans and democracy. And I understand you're going to a state fair, so best of luck with whatever that entails.
Thank you very much, Jessica. We're unveiling the butter cow today.
I can't wait to see the photos.
Thanks so much.